Virgin. Bitch. Podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
A rhetorical question. Have you ever been betrayed by a spouse or an intimate partner that you once believed cherished you? That kind of betrayal can feel like a living death. And how you process being betrayed can make all the difference in your recovery and healing, which happens to be the specialty of award-winning blogger, Amazon #1 bestseller, and a cartoonist affectionately known as Chump Lady. Tracy Schorn, welcome to Virgin Beauty, bitch.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you. I love your name, Chump Lady. We'll get into that. Now, Tracy, when I sent an invitation to you, I mentioned that Heather and I are deep into dismantling the stigma around the word bitch and breaking it into words of 5 themes: betrayal, identity, trust, change, and healing, BITCH. Our intention is to transform these 5 stages into a platform for women's growth and self-empowerment. The first word in this process is betrayal, which has multiple meanings, but a recent guest boiled it down to internal and external betrayals. Now, Tracy, you specialize in external betrayals, women suffering male infidelity and being cheated on. So let's start there. How did this become your intimate passion and now your mission?
Probably bloody-mindedness. I thought most of the advice out there sucked. And when I went through it, it was very lacking. I should preface by saying I don't just write for women, although women are interestingly the most visible. When I write gender and orientation neutral, back since 2012. But interestingly, when Google would still give you the breakdown of who was looking, I would say about a third or more of my readership were men, but they were less than 10% of the people commented because there's still so much probably taboo about being betrayed. So I do try to write for everybody. But mostly women are much more uppity and talk about it. and even though younger women read, it might be at different times, the majority, women like over 40, over 45 tend to talk about it more. They're much more vocal. So I don't know. I just thought it's kind of interesting. Betrayal happens to everybody, but absolutely to women, there's a gender element in that it's just often much more financially difficult to bounce back from. And your whole identity, right, is tied up in being partnered. There's this, you're nobody if you're not partnered. So it feels like a personal failure when things blow up because of infidelity. Yeah. But, and I'm sorry, in turn to asking your question, how I got into it. So I'm a journalist. Most of the time I've been Chump Lady. I've had a full-time job and this has been my side thing. Now I'm back to freelancing and just being Chump Lady. But when I went through it I got chumped in 2006. All the advice out there was, what did you do to make him cheat? And how are you going to improve yourself to win him back? And that was everything on the internet. That was all the resources. That was all the books. And sadly, that's still most of the narrative around infidelity. And I've tried very hard to change that. And I think it's changing. I think we have a more complex idea of what abuse looks like and what bad relationships look like. And we can talk about them now.
Yeah, I feel like people understand, or they think that they understand betrayal because of other things that have happened, either internally or a deck of cards that life gave you that, you've been either going along with or trying to rise above or change. And I know we're going to get into internal betrayal in a second, but just to finish on external betrayal, once this external betrayal happens, what do you think, it actually does to the person when what they thought was real is actually no longer real? Like, what was that process like for you?
It was completely traumatic. And I think when the discourse talks about infidelity, and I think it's shifted in the last few years, we now talk about betrayal trauma. That was not a thing when I went through it. Nobody, in fact, the books talked about it like you weren't asked to the prom. Esther Perel talks about infidelity like you weren't asked to the prom. Now she tries to talk out of both sides of her face. But I mean, it was like when I found out, and I did not serve a long sentence. I was a newlywed. I was married 6 months when my husband of the time's long-term mistress called me to tell me she existed. And I had just moved for this man's job. I was a single mom at the time when I met him. I had moved my son. I had used my money to buy a house with him. I had now made my money a marital asset. So I got financially defrauded too. It was to discover, and I was at the height of, this new life together and everything we're building, and all my own preconceived ideas about what infidelity was. I just thought, well, maybe after you've been married a bazillion years and you're bored with I just had no clue, right? That somebody who would pursue me and didn't look like Rico Suave and, who I dated for, a decent amount of time, that guy had a double life and that sociopaths walk among us. I don't have words for how traumatic it was. I mean, my hair fell out. I lost 15 pounds in a week. I ground my teeth. I broke out in stress rashes. I had hypervigilance. I couldn't sleep. I called a suicide hotline. Not because I thought I was going to off myself in that moment, but because I just manically had to talk to someone. I couldn't believe it. And then the other part of my story, which sadly, again, is not uncommon, is that when I started finding out things and confronted him, it turned into a domestic violence situation and he threatened to kill me. So I went from this guy who I thought hung the moon to this stranger who had a double life going back, as it turned out, at least 20 years with this woman. There were other women, but the woman who called me, it was long term. It was like that Twilight Zone episode where they rip off their masks and they have pig faces. You remember that? I don't know. It was like that. It was like, oh my God, they're pig-faced aliens. And it was traumatic. I'll leave it at that. It was incredibly traumatic. And my experience did not reflect the resources out there to help me.
Well, I find it very brave what you've just said, because it's so true, like in the betrayals that I've talked to other women with, especially, but every gender, you feel like the earth that you walked on, that you thought was solid, is actually not there. And it's an incredibly jarring feeling. So for you to see what sort of resources you needed that weren't available, and then, rise to meet that gap and be a space where women could see things very differently, not just shame ourselves in a whole new way. I really genuinely applaud that. We really do need that.
Hey, I think one of the issues you're saying about being in a place where you can talk about it differently or process it differently. One of the things my book did, and it's on my mind because the book I wrote, Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life, is being reissued, which doesn't really happen very often. I'm very grateful to my publisher. And so we sort of updated it, but she was giving me the jacket notes and she said, trying to summarize the whole thing. And she said, this is the book that's not centered on cheaters. This is the book that's centered on the people at chumps, the people it happened to. I call it chumps, but the experience of being betrayed. And to this day, everybody wants to talk about, the transgressive, star-crossed person who can't choose between two lovers or who's exploring their sexuality in some, so interesting way. And they don't want to talk about the person who's like vomiting with grief and like whose hair is falling out. I mean, you're not interesting. You're like a big bummer, right? And so I'm the person who's like, I'm writing for you, right? I'm not writing to figure out that guy. I am writing for you. Like, what do you want? What's acceptable to you? And that was reframing it. That was changing the discourse, because now, like, all these reconciliation books, all these books about infidelity want to plumb the very shallow depths of cheaters. You got to be like piss puddle deep to cheat on someone that you have vowed to love and honor and respect, a parent to your children. To do that to another human being means you have an empty elevator shaft where your soul should be. So there's not a lot to explore about your issues, in my opinion. But the people who really need the help are the people who, as you said, are trying to make sense of what's real, what's not real, what can I trust, what's safe. Yeah, it's a big job if it happens to you.
Where does this fall regarding, this is obvious, but gender prejudice? We value one gender over the other. We're going to concentrate on the one gender, even if it's transgressional, over the other who's suffering. I mean, is that not, that's just the way we've set things up.
Yeah, no, the gender element is, as I started off, it's Rainbow Nation. Anybody who has a trusting heart can be chumped, right? And men get chumped. My husband was chumped. So I want to make that statement. But the gendered element of it is, I'll tell you one thing. Other men never write to me. Other women write to me, and they'll be like, "Oh, he lied to me. I was chumped." And I'm like, "You're not our tribe, okay?" Now, there's unknowing people who don't know the person was married. I'm not including them. I'm talking about people who deliberately engaged in a long-term affair with somebody and knew that there was another partner. And what I say to those women is, you are conspiring in the abuse of another woman. You're not a feminist. You're not self-actualized. You're not a good person. You conspired in the abuse of another person. And can I use a crude term? Do you guys? I say they're dick suckers of the patriarchy. That's what I say. Like, you want to be that person. You want to be with the power structure. You want to be with the cool guy. And you will literally stab a woman in the back to have that. Right. And so, examine yourself, look at your choices, figure out why you did that. But that happens in an oppressive system where men are some commodity that you have to fight over, and your value is tied up in if you're partnered or not. And I call that the pick me dance, right? This competition where if it's a man, you're trying to keep two people or 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever off balance, competing for the wonderfulness that is him. And I'm telling people, no, step out of that. No, nobody who loves you would goad you into a humiliating contest. There's so many gender elements. But in terms of like how women get shamed as being quitters. They get shamed as being failures to keep their man. There's a lot of spiritual abuse. There's a lot of, Jesus thinks you're a loser if you get divorced. There's a lot of forces that keep women stuck in these bad relationships. And it's not just the human, like, I love him and I see potential and we're going to try again. There's a lot of economic and, difficult, scary things about going out on your own.
With how much, some of our society has shifted, where women are really starting to think more than they have, I feel, ever before, of what it means to almost decenter men in their life, right? Like to really try to focus on what their own ambitions and goals are, and that, that's, a place of, personal development, but also like a healthy place to be in when you're wanting a partnership, right? That you both kind of go back and forth to help each other and rise to the occasion for each other. So within that context, we still see so many women doing exactly what you just described, like wanting to be one of, maybe wanting is a strong word, but being part of 10, trying to get somebody's affection, or, giving more than 10 chances to the same behavior. What have you seen as like some of the psychological or financial, etc., underpinnings that remain present today?
Well, it kind of depends on the generation you're talking about. I mean, if you're deep in with the sunk costs, you have kids with somebody, you're middle-aged, you've got a mortgage, you've got children, you've got aging parents, you have a whole identity wrapped up with this person. That's one set of fears. Younger women, I love the whole don't center men. I wish that message existed when I was a young woman. I think if that message existed when I was a single mom, I probably wouldn't have been quick to get married the second time. I think that's great. And yet we're human, right? We were wired to bond. We want to have connections with people. I tell people there's nothing wrong with you for wanting to bond. I mean, that's what we do. It's okay. Because I think sometimes people get shamed for having needs, right? For loving and that don't put yourself through that. There's nothing wrong with you for loving a person or giving them a second chance. Don't give them a 14th chance, but I would, in terms of the barriers that are still there, too damn many. I mean, family court, gender bias in family court is real. You try to get your child support, you're a gold digger. I could give you a whole podcast of rage about child support enforcement, how it's a joke, how the average amount of child support is $399 a month, which is not even like probably your utility bill or your grocery bill and you're supposed to raise kids on that. And less than half of people are able to collect what they're owed. We have a real failure to do that. And I think the statistic I last saw, 82% of the people who are owed child support are women. So that's a gender bias problem right there. That you want to leave a cheater and you have kids, you better have that way to make money. You better have a family that's going to let you live with them. You need support because we don't have a safety net in the United States that's going to help you out. There's still a lot of barriers, and yet I don't want to be a bummer. And yet one of the reasons I'm still Chump Lady are there amazing stories of resilience of people who leave, who build better lives, who do it, in extraordinary circumstances. So you can do it, you got to be tough, but you can do it.
What do you see as a commonality between those women who do, regardless what the circumstance, they push through to become something better and make themselves better? Is there a commonality that you've seen in these people?
I think they get angry. And that's so unpopular, right? To be, I don't know if you're following like Belle Burden's book. And I love that she's raised she has a best-selling book about being abandoned by her husband. But she goes to great lengths to say she's not bitter and she's not angry. And so ergo, she's on Oprah, right? She's got a best-selling book. The people that I find who push through it at some stage, and I'm not saying you have to be this way forever, but they get righteously pissed off, right? The ones I worry, the people who write to me that I think they're going to be okay are the snarky ones, the people who have gallows humor, the people who see the absurdity of it, who are mad about it, who have, funny nicknames for, whatever. Those people, I think, okay, they've got moxie, they've got grit. They're going to be the people I worry about. The ones I really worry about are the ones who have internalized it, who are depressed, who are paralyzed, who blame themselves, and it's a big combo plate. We go through all of it, right? But to fight, to get up off the floor and fight, and I'm kind of your cheerleader to do that. That's what my blog's about. It's a switch in your head where you're like, how dare they? How, after everything I've done for our family, for you, for your mother, whatever, how dare you treat me that way? And I think the other part of it is there's like, and I went through this, and you can't really, I don't know, you can't bottle it and share it, but you get to a point where you're like, I'm just done. I will live in a box. I will accept all those things I thought I could never do. They're on the table. I'll do them, right? Anything to get away from this. And sometimes you just have to get away from it and you think, I'll figure it out later, but this isn't safe. And in a lot of cases, when you're in domestic violence situations, that's exactly what it is. It's, it's a burning house. You got to run out. You'll figure out the particulars, but run away,
I have a big smile on my face because you are describing the woman who is able to grab hold of her bitch and bring her out into the world. And that's the force that helps her be herself.
Absolutely. And everybody wants to shut that bitch up, right? Like, everybody wants to shame that bitch. You know? Bitch be crazy. I mean, there's like, but you're absolutely right. The bitch is the one that's going to save you. You want the bitch driving the car. The crying, sad person can be in the back seat, but let the bitch drive. Yeah.
Time to get in the driver's seat with the bitch.
Right.
She's driving now.
Maybe some rage driving, but it's okay.
She's got other people with her, so she'll keep them safe too.
Well, yeah, she probably will. But let me just one caveat. We have another like expression on the blog, and it comes from my husband, who's a trial lawyer, and he tells clients, if it feels good, don't do it. Like, don't get in trouble. Okay, so we reject revenge. So I'm not, you don't want to burn their stuff. You don't want to do anything a judge is going to like get mad at you. You don't want to give them centrality. You don't want to give them power. You don't want to burn their shit in a pyre. Like, don't do that. Okay. But if you channel that anger properly and you get a lawyer or you call, somebody a girlfriend to come pick you up or whatever you do, that's anger well placed. If it just lives inside you as how dare you, great. But don't do the pick-me dance. Don't like go like, I'll show her. I'm gonna sign her up for date. I mean, the other woman did that to me in my case. One of them, she signed me up for spam. She signed me up for dating things. She stalked me. It was all very dramatic and silly. These people make you crazy, right?
Well, that's a distinction that we are working to establish, is that the bitch is not about other people. It's not about how you channel your anger towards other people. It's about protecting yourself and being yourself, fully yourself. It's not about the world outside of that. That's a distinction between how we see the bitch. The bitch is about taking care of you, right? And whatever you need to do to make that happen. It's not about revenge. It's not about burning the world down. It's about protecting and surviving yourself.
Exactly. And you only have so much energy, right? It takes a lot of energy to build a new life. It takes a lot of energy to figure out what next and focus on your career, your parenting or whatever. You don't have extra energy to give a fuck with. Like, you just don't have it. You don't waste it on that person. But it's easy for me so many years out to say that, but when you're in it, it feels so raw and so all encompassing and important that it's really a mental discipline to do it, to focus and listen to your bitch,
We've focused a good amount on the external betrayals that people experience. But when you hear the words internal betrayals, what comes to mind for you?
For internal betrayal, I would think, if you're betraying yourself, like, what are my values? I think especially when you're faced with the idea, if you're going to try to reconcile with somebody who's cheated on you, it's like, does this really reflect who I am? Are these, do I want to betray my sense of self, my own potential? Do I want to put it in this? And I think a lot of people, when you're trying to decide to leave or what your next steps are, a lot of times your own values are they're conflicting. They're fighting each other. You might think, and I struggled with this, you might think like, I'm not a quitter. I'm not somebody who gets faced with a problem and is just going to back down. Like, I'm going to, fight for this, or I'm going to figure it out, or I'm going to read 1,000 books on Amazon and do my homework. And then there's a solution. I'm going to find it. That's one value, right? And we say, oh, that's good. That's you're a good girl. That's how you're supposed to be, And then you'll have a conflicting value, which is perhaps your bitch, which is like, I don't take this. I'm not putting up with this. I will not be treated that way. I'm out of here. But I'm not a quitter. And so to listen to one voice over the other can feel like an internal betrayal. Like, if I go, I'm a quitter. If I stay, I'm a chump. A patsy, I'm a doormat. So you can have those, those internal struggles. I guess I don't know if betrayal is like for me the right word for it though, because in fact, these days, I try not to even talk. Like a lot of the infidelity discourse are betrayed spouse, which I find soppy and kind of, you have been conned, right? You're the victim of another person's double life that you didn't know about, right? So you didn't really betray yourself because you didn't know about this. You didn't know about this external thing. How you react to it is like you've been punched in the face. I mean, you don't really know what to do. You're so broadsided by that. That betrayal is like I don't know. I like somebody really they let you down, but I really come back to, I don't even like to use infidelity and cheating anymore. I really come back to double life, double life, double life. I didn't consent to it. I don't know about it. But once I know about it, now I have choices about what I can do, you know? And when we talk in terms of betrayal internally or externally, it's kind of like an escape hatch for the cheater. It's like, oh, you expected me to be this. You want me to be perfect, and I'm not perfect. Let's put the battlefield on, your expectations and your needs and what you wanted. And I would bring it back to, no, you fronted a fake investment to me. You extracted my labor, right, to provide something for you. And that's theft. And so sometimes betrayal isn't the right word when we're talking about, infidelity. I mean, there's other kinds of betrayals, but what I'm talking about, when your partner had a double life and you didn't know about it, like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time beating you up about how you responded or didn't respond.
I think for betrayal for us, when we talk about the internal part, is how you were raised, the values that you were given, as far as a woman. Basically, everyone else is more important than you. You have to serve and be nice to everyone because that's your value as a woman. We're talking more about that betrayal that then connects you to enduring so much suffering in these kinds of relationships later on in your life, because this value of what you've been given as a child, as a girl, now becomes a thing that you need to hang on to, that you feel will bring you the happiness, the joy, the love that life will bring to you. So that's the kind of betrayal we're talking about. It's something that was implanted in you that you feel obliged to hang on to.
I think you don't have to betray your values in that sense, in that, like, I'm someone who takes care of my family. I love my children. I provide for them. I care about other people's needs. Now, I don't think you should care about them more than your own. I think you matter. But I think the insidious thing about infidelity is that you have your very best qualities weaponized against you. So you might be that person, that all loving, all giving kind of big chumpy heart, and your cheater knows it, right? You're going to give me 14 chances. You're going to try harder. You would never hurt your children with divorce. I mean, when you're that kind of person, you can be manipulated because you have values, you have things to be in conflict with. If you're a stone cold sociopath, none of that works on you because you don't care. You care about you. But so it is hard, I think, internally to like flip the script to go, I matter. And I guess what I would tell people who have that mindset is that nobody owes you. You don't owe, we owe our children because we brought them into the world, right? But when you do for others, it's a gift, right? And you give because you're a loving, bonding person, but they're not entitled to it, right? I mean, cheating is an entitlement problem. And in healthy relationships, we have reciprocity and mutuality. And we're not living in monarchies where we serve the king. So if you think that like your value is to be a good serf, then I think I don't know. I'm telling you, those values don't go with me. And I think they feel unnatural to most people who are in the Dobby the house elf role. You matter. You matter. Like, it's okay. It shouldn't upset your values to think you matter.
I appreciate the reframing that you've given, because we are hit in the face constantly with how words impact the experiences that we're going through. So to hear how certain framings and words have impacted your experience, the women and all genders that you work with, I think it opens up the sphere of this conversation to find things that resonate with us, that doesn't continue to kind of push us down or push us back, but brings us forward in the ways that we want to move forward. So, um, you know, for your experience and the people that you've worked with that, have gone through some sort of betrayal, maybe it isn't the one that we focused on for this show, but when you're working through it and working past it and you've gone through this reframing, what would you say in the work that you've done, if you want to call it, I don't want to say on the other side, because I don't think that the work is ever done, but
Mhm.
what do you think it feels like now to have gone into the books you've read, found a gap, helped to fill that gap, the work that you're doing now? Like, how does that feel with where you are today?
Oh, it's really gratifying. I mean, it's amazing. I never thought I'd be doing it this far down the line. We call it like gain a life, right? Leave the cheater. That's one part, but the gain of life is the rest of your life. And that's why I do it, because I think the trajectory, the stories that I got from people who have left, who circle back, who talk to me about their lives getting out of abusive relationships, it's just I'm always blown away. I'm so happy. I mean, I can think of 1,000. I mean, there's been so many over the years, but I come up with one. I met this woman in Australia. She had left her husband. She actually wrote to me at like 3 a.m. or something. She's in the airport, and she found out her husband. She was living, I think, in Indonesia or something. She was from Australia, and her husband had a job, and they had a driver, and the guy said, look, I hate to tell you this, but I take your husband to brothels, and he's cheating on you. And she was just devastated, right? She's so far from home, she's got kids, so she had a home visit, and she was leaving him, and she's writing me from the airport. She's like, hi, I read your blog, I'm leaving my husband. And I just, like, please see a lawyer, hang in there. I was just trying to be moral support to this person. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm in Australia. She actually flew to the other side of Australia to meet me and told me, showed me a picture. Like, her kids are great. Here they are. They're going to like Disney World in Europe or something. She lived with her parents for a year. She got a master's in human resources. She's crushing it at some job. The guy, gave up custody, like Zooms his kids once in a while, could care less, and is still a fuckwit. I mean, she just did this amazing thing. She left, she rebuilt, she's back home with her family and her friends and her network. Her kids are doing great. That's one story. I mean, in the book, there's now testimonials. I have like 6 stories like this, from a woman who was pregnant with twins and had 2 other kids under 4, and left her husband in her 2nd trimester, pregnant with twins. I mean, there's just, and then years later, she's crushing it at her job and gets a promotion, and people from Chump Nation show up to cheer her on. I mean, yeah, that's why I do this. Like, there's such a better life on the other side. It's just, it's the trajectory. It's all about the trajectory, right? And then if you're going through it in terms of how to get over rejection or other kind of betrayals, it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as being abandoned or being cheated on. I would say rejection, it's one person's opinion of you, and consider the source, right? If it's somebody who's checked out, who's behaving unethically, who has a double life, and they think you suck, well, consider this. You're going to be insulted by that person. Like, you have a values mismatch. They're not all that, right? And there's a big world out there of other people who may have very different opinions about you and your worth, and go be with those people, because there's nothing to be gained here, and when somebody's devalued you, they're generally not going to like raise your stock again. So you've got better things to do with your life.
Those 2 samples you give, I think most people wouldn't hear this word associated with those women, but we hear bitch.
You're
when we speak about those women, right?
Yeah. Someone told me bitch was being in total control of herself. That was the acronym I got. I like your guys' acronym too.
Right? But we don't associate that word with those women who have overcome and are, like you say, crushing it.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that you're taking bitch back. Yeah.
Tell us about your book, where people can get it and how they can listen to you and get more involved in what it is you do. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a blog, Chump Lady. I have a podcast with my co-host Sarah Gorel, and it's called Tell Me How You're Mighty. And we talk to people. It's all about getting to the other side, gain a life. There's a lot of snark and humor. And then my book is Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life. And it's coming. You can buy it now, but the new version is coming out in September of 2026.
We love your spice. You bring a lot of spice.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Same here.
Thank you for doing this and taking time to join us and bring so much joy and fun to the show. We really appreciate that.
Well, I hope you'll let me know where I can listen to it.
Oh, definitely, for sure. And you have been listening to
The Virgin.
The Beauty.
And the BITCH in her year, the year of the bitch.
Find us, like us, share us. We have more conversations like this. You want to bring your friends, gather around a table, maybe a little wine,